Hello and welcome to English Vibes Hub. I'm your host, Emma, and I'm super excited to be here today talking about a topic that's really useful for all of you who are learning English. Asking for and giving directions. Whether you're traveling, moving to a new city, or just trying to find your way around, knowing how to ask for directions and understand the responses is crucial.
That's right, Emma. I remember when I was traveling abroad, I got lost so many times because I didn't know how to ask for directions properly. It was really frustrating, but it was also a great learning experience. Today, we're going to dive into some really helpful phrases and vocabulary that will make navigating your way around so much easier.
Exactly, and to start off, let's talk about the phrasal verb to turn. This is a really common one when giving directions. For example, if someone asks you how to get to the nearest subway station, you might say, "Turn left at the traffic lights and walk for about 5 minutes." It's a simple but essential phrase to know.
The phrasal verb to turn can be a bit confusing for some learners because it has multiple meanings, but in the context of giving directions, it's pretty straightforward. Another useful one is to head. For instance, you could say, "Head towards the city center," and you'll find plenty of restaurants and shops. It's a great way to give a general direction without having to be too specific.
I love the example you gave, Liam. To head is indeed very useful. Now, let's talk about the idiom to be on the right track. This one is not just about directions, it's also about being on the path to achieving something. But in the context of physical directions, if someone is on the right track, it means they're going in the correct direction towards their destination. For example, "You're on the right track, just keep walking straight for a few more minutes and you'll see the park on your left."
That's a great point, Emma. And what about to take a shortcut? This is another really useful phrase for giving directions. It means to take a quicker route to get somewhere, often by avoiding the main roads. For example, if you take a shortcut through the park, you'll get to the museum much faster. It's a good way to help someone save time or avoid traffic.
I completely agree, Liam. Using phrases like "to take a shortcut" can make a big difference in how efficiently you navigate through a city. Now, let's consider a scenario where you're giving directions to someone who is driving. You might say, "Bear left at the roundabout," and then take the second exit. The phrase "to bear left" means to steer the vehicle slightly to the left, which is important for safe navigation, especially in heavy traffic or complex intersections.
Absolutely, Emma. And it's also important to understand the difference between bear left and turn left. While turn left is a more abrupt change in direction, bear left is a smoother, more gradual one. This distinction can be crucial for drivers, as it helps them anticipate and prepare for the turn, reducing the risk of accidents.
That's a fantastic explanation, Liam. Now, let's think about how we can apply these phrases in real-life situations. Imagine you're visiting a new city and you're trying to find your way back to your hotel. You stop someone on the street and ask for directions. They tell you to head down the street for a few blocks, then turn right at the big fountain. What do you do if you're not sure where the fountain is or what it looks like?
Well, Emma, in that situation, it's perfectly fine to ask for clarification. You could say, "Sorry, could you explain where the fountain is? I'm not familiar with this area." Or, "How will I recognize the fountain? Is it a landmark or something?" Asking for clarification is a big part of successfully giving and receiving directions.
Asking for clarification is indeed key. And what about using landmarks or points of interest when giving directions? For example, saying, "The restaurant is just opposite the library," or "You'll find the shop next to the big cinema." Using landmarks can make it much easier for someone to find their way, especially in areas with a lot of similar-looking buildings or streets.
Landmarks are incredibly useful, Emma. They provide a clear reference point that can help reduce confusion. And it's not just about giving directions. Understanding how to use landmarks when receiving directions is also important. If someone says the meeting point is near the clock tower, you should be able to recognize the clock tower and understand its relation to your current location.
Exactly, Liam. Recognizing landmarks and understanding their spatial relationships is a skill that develops over time with practice. Now, let's consider another common scenario: giving directions over the phone. How do you ensure the person on the other end understands the directions correctly, especially if you're talking about a complex route or a place with many similar names?
When giving directions over the phone, it's essential to speak clearly and slowly, and to use simple, straightforward language. You might also ask the person to repeat back the directions to ensure they've understood them correctly. This can help catch any misunderstandings early on and prevent the person from getting lost.
That's a great point, Liam. Repeating back directions is a good way to confirm understanding. And what about using technology, like GPS or map apps, to give and receive directions? How do you think these tools have changed the way we navigate and communicate directions to each other?
Technology has revolutionized the way we give and receive directions, Emma. With GPS and map apps, we can get precise, turn-by-turn directions to almost any location. It's made traveling and exploring new places so much easier and less intimidating. But at the same time, it's also important to remember that technology isn't always perfect, and knowing how to ask for and give directions the old-fashioned way is still a valuable skill.
I couldn't agree more, Liam. There's definitely a balance between relying on technology and having the basic skills to navigate on our own. And speaking of balance, let's balance out our conversation by considering different perspectives on this topic. What do you think are some common challenges people face when trying to ask for or give directions in a foreign country? And how can we overcome these challenges?
One of the biggest challenges, Emma, is the language barrier. If you don't speak the local language, it can be very difficult to ask for directions or understand the responses. But there are ways to overcome this, such as using translation apps, carrying a phrasebook, or even just being brave and trying to communicate through gestures and simple phrases.
That's a great point, Liam. And what about cultural differences in giving and receiving directions? For example, in some cultures, it's considered polite to give very detailed and elaborate directions, while in others, it's more common to give brief and straightforward instructions. How can we be sensitive to these cultural differences when interacting with people from different backgrounds?
Being aware of these cultural nuances is really important, Emma. It can help us avoid misunderstandings and show respect for the local customs. For instance, if you're in a culture where detailed directions are the norm, you might want to ask follow-up questions to show you're interested and willing to learn. On the other hand, in a culture where brevity is preferred, you might want to keep your questions concise and to the point.
I think that's a wonderful approach, Liam. Being open-minded and flexible when communicating across cultures is key. And as we continue this conversation, I'd love to hear more about your experiences with asking for and giving directions in different parts of the world. Have you ever had any particularly memorable or challenging experiences that you'd like to share?
Actually, Emma, I have a story about getting lost in a small town in Europe. I was trying to find my way back to my hotel, but I didn't speak the language and my map wasn't very helpful. I ended up asking for directions from a local, and even though we didn't share a common language, we managed to communicate through gestures and simple drawings. It was a really rewarding experience, and it taught me the importance of being patient and creative when navigating unfamiliar places.
That's a fantastic story, Liam. It highlights the importance of staying calm and resourceful when faced with challenges. And as we move forward in our conversation, I'd like to explore more scenarios and strategies for effectively asking for and giving directions. Perhaps we can discuss some common pitfalls to avoid, such as giving vague instructions or not considering the listener's perspective.
I think that's a great idea, Emma. By examining these potential pitfalls, we can gain a deeper understanding of how to improve our communication skills and provide better directions. And who knows, maybe our listeners will share some of their own experiences and tips for navigating the complexities of giving and receiving directions.
I'm looking forward to hearing from our listeners and continuing this conversation in our next segment. For now, let's keep exploring the ins and outs of asking for and giving directions. Liam, what are your thoughts on using visual aids like maps or diagrams to help illustrate directions?
Visual aids can be incredibly helpful, Emma. Sometimes a picture or a map can convey information much more effectively than words alone. And with the rise of digital technology, it's easier than ever to access and share visual aids like Google Maps or interactive diagrams.
That's a great point, Liam. Visual aids can really help to clarify directions and make them more memorable. And as we wrap up this part of our conversation, I'd like to ask, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind when asking for or giving directions, whether it's in a foreign country or in your hometown?
For me, Emma, the most important thing is to stay patient and open-minded. Whether you're the one giving directions or the one receiving them, It's essential to be willing to listen, ask questions, and clarify any misunderstandings. By doing so, you can ensure a smoother and more successful navigation experience.
I completely agree with you, Liam. Being patient and open-minded is crucial when asking for or giving directions. It reminds me of a time when I was traveling in a foreign country and got lost in a small village. I had to ask for directions from a local, but unfortunately, I didn't speak the language fluently, so I had to rely on hand gestures and simple phrases like "where is" and "how do I get to?"
Wow, that sounds like quite an adventure, Emma. I've had similar experiences, especially when I was backpacking across Europe. One time, I got lost in a maze of streets in Venice, and I had to ask a police officer for directions. He told me to bear left at the next intersection, which I didn't understand at first, but then I realized he meant I should turn slightly to the left. It's amazing how a simple phrase like that can be so confusing if you're not familiar with it.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to clarify any misunderstandings. In this case, the phrase "bear left" is a great example of a phrasal verb that can be tricky to understand. Another one that comes to mind is "turn back," which means to reverse direction or return to a previous location. For instance, if you're driving and you realize you've taken a wrong turn, you might need to turn back and try again.
That's a good point, Emma. And speaking of driving, I've noticed that people often use the phrase "head towards" when giving directions. This means to move in a general direction or to set a course for a particular location. For example, if someone asks you how to get to the city center, you might say "head towards the main road" and then turn left at the traffic lights.
I like that example, Liam. Another phrasal verb that's commonly used when giving directions is "cut through." This means to take a shortcut or to pass through a particular area in order to get to your destination more quickly. For instance, if you're walking through a park and you want to get to the other side, you might cut through the gardens or the woods to save time.
That's really helpful, Emma. And I think it's also important to talk about the phrase "make a detour," which means to take a different route or to deviate from your original plan. This can be useful if there's a traffic jam or a road closure, and you need to find an alternative way to get to your destination. For example, if you're driving to the beach and you encounter a roadblock, you might need to make a detour through a nearby town to get around it.
I've had to make a detour before, and it can be frustrating, but it's also a great opportunity to explore new areas and discover hidden gems. And that brings me to another idiom that's related to directions: off the beaten track. This means to venture away from the usual or most common route, and to explore areas that are less touristy or less well-known. For instance, if you're traveling in a popular destination, you might want to go off the beaten track to find unique restaurants or shops that are not listed in the guidebooks.
I love that idea, Emma. And it's also important to talk about the phrase "get your bearings," which means to get a sense of your surroundings and to understand where you are in relation to other places. This can be especially helpful if you're in a new city or an unfamiliar area, and you need to get a feel for the layout of the streets and the location of important landmarks.
Absolutely, Liam. And I think that's one of the most challenging things about giving directions, trying to help someone get their bearings and understand the context of the area. It's not just about providing a list of steps or instructions, but also about painting a picture of the surroundings and helping the person to visualize the route.
That's so true, Emma, and I think we can illustrate this point with a role play. Let's say I'm a tourist in a new city, and I'm trying to find my way to a famous landmark. You can be the local, and you can give me directions and try to help me get my bearings.
Sounds like fun, Liam. Okay, so you're standing in the city center, and you're looking for the famous tower. You come up to me and ask for directions. Go ahead and start by asking me where the tower is.
Excuse me, can you tell me where the tower is? I've been walking around for hours, and I still can't seem to find it.
The tower is actually just a few blocks away from here. If you head down the street and turn left at the traffic lights, you'll see it on your right-hand side. But first, let me give you a map and show you the layout of the area so you can get a better sense of where you are.
That would be great, thank you. I'm a bit turned around and I'm not sure which direction to go. Can you show me on the map where we are now and where the tower is in relation to us?
Okay, so we're here and the tower is over here. You can see that it's just a short walk from the city center. If you follow this street and then turn right at the park, you'll be heading in the right direction.
I think I understand now. So I need to head towards the park and then turn right. What's the best way to get to the park from here?
You can either walk or take the bus. The bus stop is just around the corner, and it will take you straight to the park. But if you prefer to walk, it's about a 10-minute walk from here.
I think I'll walk, thanks. I'd like to get a feel for the area and see some of the sights along the way. Can you tell me what I'll see as I'm walking to the park?
As you walk to the park, you'll pass by a few shops and cafes. There's a nice little bakery on the corner that's worth checking out, and there's also a street performer who usually sets up near the park entrance. Just be aware that the park can get quite crowded, especially on weekends, so you might want to bear left and avoid the main path if you're in a hurry.
Got it, thanks for the tip. I'll make sure to bear left and avoid the crowds. And what about the tower itself? What can I expect to see when I get there?
The tower is really impressive, and the views from the top are stunning. You can see the whole city spread out before you, and on a clear day, you can even see the surrounding mountains. But be warned, the stairs can be a bit steep, so you might want to take a break and rest for a minute before you start climbing.
I'll definitely take a break if I need to. I don't want to rush the experience and miss out on anything. And finally, what about getting back to the city center after I've visited the tower? Is there a straightforward way to get back, or do I need to make a detour?
Actually, there's a really convenient bus route that will take you straight back to the city center. You can catch the bus just outside the tower, and it will drop you off right in the heart of the city. But if you prefer to walk, it's about a 20-minute walk, and you can cut through the park to get back to the city center more quickly.
That sounds perfect. Thanks for the information. I feel much more confident now that I have a better sense of the area and the directions. I think I'll head towards the park and start my journey to the tower.
You're welcome, Liam. I'm glad I could help. And don't hesitate to ask for help if you get lost or need further directions. Just remember to stay patient and open-minded, and you'll have a great time exploring the city.
Will do. Thanks again for your help. I'm excited to start my adventure and see what the city has to offer.
You're welcome, Liam. It was my pleasure to assist you. And who knows, maybe you'll even discover some hidden gems off the beaten track that will make your trip even more memorable.
I'm definitely hoping to stumble upon some unexpected surprises, and I'm sure that with your help, I'll be able to get my bearings and navigate the city like a pro.
I'm confident you will, Liam. And don't forget to enjoy the journey and take in the sights and sounds of the city. It's not just about getting from point A to point B, but also about the experiences you have along the way.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Okay, I think I've got everything I need to know now. Thanks again, Emma, and I'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome, Liam. It was great chatting with you, and I look forward to hearing about your adventures in the city. Let's continue this conversation in our next segment, where we'll explore more scenarios and share even more tips and tricks for asking for and giving directions. Welcome back to our final segment on asking for and giving directions. I'm so excited to share some more tips and tricks with you, Liam.
Me too, Emma. I've learned so much already. I was thinking, what if I get lost in a big city? What are some phrases I can use to ask for help?
That's a great question, Liam. One phrase you can use is bear left or bear right. It means to turn slightly in that direction. For example, if someone says bear left at the traffic lights, it means you should turn slightly to the left when you reach the traffic lights.
That makes sense. I've also heard people say take a shortcut. What does that mean?
Taking a shortcut means to take a route that's shorter than the usual one. It can save you time and energy. For instance, if someone says take a shortcut through the park, it means you can walk through the park to get to your destination faster.
I see. What about make a U-turn? I've seen signs that say that, but I'm not sure what it means.
Making a U-turn means to turn your car or vehicle around to face the opposite direction. It's like doing a 180-degree turn. You can use this phrase when giving directions, like make a U-turn at the next intersection.
Okay, got it. And what about pull over? Is that like stopping the car?
Exactly, Liam. Pulling over means to stop your vehicle at the side of the road, usually to talk to someone or to take a break. You can say pull over at the next parking lot or pull over to ask for directions.
These phrases are really helpful, Emma. I feel more confident now about asking for and giving directions.
That's great to hear, Liam. Practice makes perfect, so try using these phrases in your everyday conversations. You can also listen to podcasts or watch videos that demonstrate how to give directions in different scenarios.
I'll definitely do that. and I think our listeners will find these tips and tricks really useful too.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, from basic phrases to more advanced vocabulary and phrasal verbs. I hope our listeners have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have.
Me too, Emma. It's been a blast chatting with you about asking for and giving directions.
Before we go, let's recap some of the key phrases we've discussed. We've got bear left, bear right, take a shortcut, make a U-turn, and pull over. These phrases will definitely help you navigate your way around a new city or town.
And don't forget to use a map or GPS to help you find your way. It's always a good idea to have a backup plan, just in case you get lost.
Great point, Liam. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you about asking for and giving directions.
Likewise, Emma. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of English Vibes Hub, everyone. If you liked this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more episodes on learning English.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on our latest episodes. We'll catch you all in the next one.